Hi, this is the Dr. Deborah Show, and we're here live at KCSB FM Santa Barbara 91.9, and this is the show where we talk about bringing peace and calm into your life, and later in the show, we're going to be talking about mental health stigma. And KCSB is a platform for cultural expression and thoughtful discussion, providing a diverse educational forum. And I'm a Santa Barbara-based clinical psychologist, and I specialize in pediatric neuropsychology. During my clinical training and my work, I've treated thousands of people, and so I want to share my experiences with you. I'm also a UCSB alumni, so I always love coming back out to UCSB, and I live locally in Santa Barbara. This show is all about our community and how to create compassionate conversations about our well-being and health. Today on the show, we are going to be talking about mental health with a focus on homelessness and also neighborhood clinics. And so we have a very special guest, Maria Long. And Maria is currently the Director of Development and Community Awareness of Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics. And she has worked tirelessly in our community and many organizations in different ways. She joined Doctors Without Walls as its inaugural executive director in January 2014. And Maria has successfully led local nonprofits in Santa Barbara County for decades, including her humanitarian work with the Freedom Warming Centers as a consultant fundraiser to the CADA, that's the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, and as executive director of CASA. That's a court-appointed special advocate. And she also holds an MA in clinical psychology. And Ms. Long has received national recognition for a video called Ask Your Doctor. Ask Your Doctor is a campaign that's coordinated with local doctors featuring print and television PSAs in both English and Spanish about the symptoms of binge drinking. And Maria is one of the driving forces behind the Summit for Danny, a local fundraising climb, as well as the Kids Fight Drugs poster contest, Red Ribbon Week activities called I'm Free for the Weekend, and the Mission for Mentors Telethon. Maria has appeared on ABC and NBC television and radio, and she's been featured in the LA Times as an expert on the dangers of the club drug GHB. Maria has also volunteered for the Braille Institute and the Center Force Visitor Center at San Quentin Prison. She's an active member of Sunrise Rotary International, and in 2001, Maria was given the Clear Channel's K-Light Community Hero Award for her dedication to the children in Santa Barbara. I want to welcome you to the show, Maria.
Thanks for having me, and it's really good to see you again, because we go back for a long way when we were both acquiring our masters at Antioch and working at the same time and frazzle-dazzling through school. So to be here with you on the radio is an honor, and thanks for all those accolades. It feels like such a lifetime ago that all that happened.
I know you've done amazing things. Every time your name pops up, someone's, oh, wow, I love the work she's done. And like you said, I'm so glad to be reconnected because as Maria was explaining, we did our grad school together. And, you know, when you do grad school or any kind of schooling, I guess, right, we bond with people. And Maria and I have a strong bond, even though we haven't seen each other in a little while. And that's why I love this show. So we can bring people in, we can reconnect, we can share, and we can grow together.
I think that the beauty about Santa Barbara, and sometimes I laugh at myself because you have to really behave. It's a small town, but we're all connected and we all work really well together. And as you mentioned, I've done a lot of, I never set out to, honestly, to do what I do. I set out to be a clinical psychologist like you. I never set out to be an executive director or doing huge media events. It just naturally was my calling, where my soul equaled my role, and it was easier for me to tell a story than it was to sit with somebody and to although I'm more comfortable that way, but I naturally fell into these compassionate leadership roles. And if you look at and we talk about my history, it's all centered around the most vulnerable. And
That's
it's centered
true.
around foster children and homelessness and addiction and health care and all of the things that maybe are the complex part of myself and my history. And that's why I do what I do. And if anybody's listening, I encourage you to always find joy in soul in your role, and
Love that.
and attached to your calling. And your calling may not be what you think it is.
Yep. And sometimes it reminds me of like a river. You know, you kind of have to follow the path
That's right.
a little. But I think, and I love that you listen to yourself.
Well, I haven't always, and I've made a lot of mistakes that way. And actually, I started out in San Francisco in the fashion business, and came to Santa Barbara to open a bikini store, and was counseling women on body image the whole time. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I might as well become a counselor. And then, voila, there we were in Antioch getting our masters, and then here we are almost 20 years later. Well, I don't think it's quite 20, but it's been a long
That was
journey and a
2004.
lot of different records. A lot of different albums and phases have been produced, I'd say.
It's a journey. I mean, I think sometimes out of like quote unquote failures or things that didn't work, you know, we get turned towards something else. And if we move into that, and I love that, you know, you don't have to, if you get a master's degree or whatever, you get in clinical psychology, you don't have to be a therapist. There's lots of other things you could do with that.
It certainly was helpful, though, as I was going through the process, to discover, especially if you're in the getting a psychology degree, it's like accelerated daily therapy. You know, we'd be sitting in there crying in our groups.
Right, that's true.
But it also gave me great ability to read people, and my intuition is usually correct. And I'm grateful for that.
And did you know, actually, my research I did for my PhD was on intuition. And, people think of intuition as being like a metaphysical kind of esoteric, out there idea. But actually, intuition is a very important key neurological function. It's kind of like the culmination or the keystone of our health, our mental health for sure. But it does help us to regulate our physiology and our thoughts, and also to learn to trust ourselves. So
yeah, it's as if somebody asks you to do something and it sounds really great, but it doesn't feel right. Well, it's like go with your gut.
Totally. And, your gut has kind of its own brain, too. In fact, they found the same neurons in our heart, in the protective fat that surrounds our heart, and also in the protective fat that surrounds our gut. So you kind of have three brains you can maximize on. And not all of us think with our head, as well as maybe with our heart or our gut.
Well, I don't think with my head very well when it comes to men. But if I thought with my gut, maybe I'd have a little bit better success. But that's a different talk show, don't you think?
We'll have to do that one.
Okay.
So, we're here talking today about mental health stigma. No, it's okay. You don't need to be sorry. I mean, I think one thing I love about this show is that people can be honest and they can be transparent. And also we can talk with each other as colleagues, but also as caring friends toward each other. And so we're in this human tribe together. So you don't need to be sorry for that. We'll just have to do that on another show.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I like
there
to
is
just...
one, it's called Love Lines. Her name is, what is her name? She's broadcast nationally. So
Well, there's the
maybe we
Dr.
can
Drew
call
show.
into her.
We'll have to try that. As you can see, Maria and I are having a good time. And that's one reason I like this show, too, because you don't have to talk about mental health and feel like, oh, I don't want to talk about mental health because, it won't be fun. But actually, sometimes it's very freeing to talk to somebody else about mental health or share your story. And, we're talking about mental health stigma today because mental health is the largest public health priority. And it's also the largest financial burden of any health issue in the world. That's according to the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum. And the Centers for Disease Control report called Attitudes Towards Mental Illness found that stigma and embarrassment are two of the top reasons why people with mental health issues or mental illness do not seek help or medication. And I always just like to remind people that mental health issues surround people from all walks of life. In fact, we all have mental health issues at some point in our life. And I just like to briefly talk about what is mental health. I think of mental health as when our thoughts are kind of running smoothly, our heart feels like it's beating at a nice rate, our nervous system feels pretty calm, and that gives us a sense of inner peace. And so I like to just describe that. I was wondering, Maria, how would you describe mental health in all your experience?
Well, I think it's actively feeling joy in your life. It's not excessive doubt and anxiety that's constantly streaming through you. I think that there are different states of mental health. I mean, there's good anxiety.
Exactly.
There's anxiety-driven depression, which is not so good. I would describe mental health, though, as peace that connects your brain to your heart, to your gut, and then you exude that. It comes out through your eyes. It comes out. I'm smiling as I'm talking to you, and I hope you can all feel it out there, who is ever listening. But I think it takes a while to get there, and you're not always there, and to be gentle on yourself when you're not there. I think that's the hardest place to
yeah, that's a beautiful.
It's the hardest thing to come back to. I also think that it takes a lot of work to have sound mental health. I think whatever works best for you. For a lot of people, it's simple things like exercise. For me, it's grounding my day and starting it right with something inspirational. It's being around funny people. That's joy to me. It's creative expression. It's music. I'm on the board of a record label. I love that.
Nice.
And then I also love what I do. And so I think it's surrounding yourself with things that you're passionate about, but that's not true for everybody, and I think that's what we need to understand. It's
a personal choice, yeah.
But the thing that also that we tend to forget is that we're all wired a little differently, and we're just one little gene or genetic code away from being permanently depressed or having schizophrenia or having some other mental disorder that we could possibly never understand because we don't live inside that person's skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where some of the issues of that I've been attracted to in my career have come forth. It's always the most vulnerable. People find themselves in places through no fault of their own. Nobody chooses to be homeless. Nobody chooses to be a foster kid. Nobody chooses to be a drug addict. Nobody chooses to be depressed. Nobody chooses to be an alcoholic. That's not a choice we wake up and say, hey, that's what I want to do. But people find themselves without work. They find themselves, and then without all those things that as a Western society we consider successful, without all those things, then you've got this spiral of dysfunction that can take on a lot of different forms.
It's true. Well, and that's why I always try to keep my mental health in check and kind of teach my patients to even check in with themselves on a regular basis, like every hour, just kind of put your feet on the ground and take in a couple breaths, because if we don't learn to check in with ourselves and see where we're at and what we need, and also like Maria's saying, some of it's out of our control. Sometimes something happens that, genetically, kicks us into another place, or life circumstances. And so it's really important to be compassionate. My grandmother, I was telling Maria this before we went on the air, but, she always said, if you see somebody that's homeless, it's somebody's daughter, brother, mother, father, uncle. It's somebody's family member. So it's important to have some compassion.
Yeah, and I think that for myself, and I'll say this on the air, the reason that I chose to go into the work that I did was because I lost my parents at a really young age. I was technically orphaned by the time I was 16, and I went to live in 3 foster homes, was emancipated at 18, and by the time I was 26, I had probably moved 20 times. And by the time I got down to Santa Barbara, I've now lived in the same home for 20 years, which is remarkable to have that happen. But I have an understanding for what it's like to not be grounded, to not have a home, to not have anybody else, and to not know what's coming next. And you learn to be not only very thrifty and you learn to be a survivor, but it can go the opposite way too, and it can lead to severe mental issues such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, which I'm sure a lot of people have been experiencing, and I know they are experiencing with the recent disasters. So we're all just one disaster away from homelessness. Either it's a landslide, a mudslide, it's a fire, it's your family dying, it's your inability to pay your rent because you lost your job.
I know. I've been thinking about all those government employees. I mean, how's their mental health? And it's true, just if you don't have a job, I mean, how do you pay for your housing?
And if you don't have a family
right.
to rely on or to fall back on, or if you're in a family that doesn't understand the choices that you may have made and you've been outcast from your family, then, you've got a double whammy there where you're just, you have a lot of different obstacles. And that's where, right now in my role at the neighborhood clinics, one of the programs that they have, which I really like, are our wellness navigators. And it's a team of specialists that if you're uninsured, let's say you come in for a medical problem, you're uninsured, they'll help you get insurance. They go as far as to help you get food stamps, get you onto Medi-Cal or Medicaid, help you with the housing process. We can give you a voucher to go get clothes. It goes on and on, the lengths that they have gone to help people get back on their feet. So that was one of the things that attracted me to them, and how I was introduced to the neighborhood clinics. And in my work with Doctors Without Walls, they have another beautiful program called Companion Care, and that's where we literally would take somebody off the street who's living in a park, under a park bench. Let's say this particular guy was living in the garage at Vaughn's, and he had all his belongings in his shopping cart, and he wouldn't leave his shopping cart because that's all he had, so he wouldn't go to the doctor. And we had actually become friends, and he had an Obama phone at the time, and he sent me a picture of a tumor in his neck.
What's an Obama phone?
During the Obama administration, they were giving out free phones to the homeless so that they could reconnect with loved ones or relatives or make phone calls to get medical appointments.
Yeah, I love that.
And you could go to it was sponsored, and you could go to any corner and you could get a free phone. And so people were connected to care, and it was a way for them to get connected to the free care that during his administration, in his effort to make sure that all Americans had health care. That was one of the efforts.
I know Domestic Violence Solutions, when I worked there many years ago, they used to give out free phones too. I mean, I think that is a great idea too, just to get more phones to people who are homeless.
The other thing that I know that a lot of folks do, and a big shout out to our friends at the library. You can go down to the library and use their computers for free.
That's right.
And you can get connected to services through them. I mean, they handle so many different types of folks in so many different ways, from children's education to homelessness in a certain section to students who are doing research and having to check out a book. So that was a lot of the central place during my time with Doctors Without Walls, where we would look for a lot of our patients.
Right, because I mean, in your experience, I know the library you're saying is a great resource for to find books and bring your kids, but also you're saying that was the place that you went and collaborated with when you worked in the homeless.
We would collaborate with them in a multitude of ways. That we would. If we were looking for a patient because we had gotten a result back on a test where we needed to do what we call warm handoff physically walk them into the neighborhood clinics, which was our first step if there was a medical procedure that was beyond our scope of care. We were treating just basic need on the street, infections and wounds and sore throats and vaccines and a lot of staph infection, things like that, lice. That's what they treated. But when there was something that was out of our scope that they needed more help, that's where the neighborhood clinic stepped in. And in all of that, it was preventing those folks who didn't have insurance from inundating the emergency rooms. So at the same time, we're helping people and we're doing humanitarian work. We're also helping the hospitals so they can do the work in case of severe disaster, in case of a severe accident. So we're not flooding the emergency rooms. So in all of this, we've all been very, very great partners and collaborators in everything that we do. And I think that's the beauty of Santa Barbara, because we all know each other, and that way we can pick up the phone and say, I really need your help with this project. Can you help me? Let's call Easy Lift. Can they get us there? Let's call somebody at domestic violence, see if we connect that person and get them there. Can we help with the fundraiser? Is
there a name for that team that goes or the collaboration effort?
I don't. It just depends on. What issue you're talking about.
Well, I was just thinking for if people wanted to get involved somehow.
Well, I would say there's always 211, which is the access to services all for any social service across the county. But I would say most nonprofits always need some support, regardless of if it's something really simple one day, such as cooking a meal down at Path, which is the former Casa Esperanza, or if it's something as simple as cooking a meal for the warming center or distributing socks at the warming center. And warming centers are pop-up shelters in churches in times of inclement weather, and that means that in times that the weather drops between 35 degrees or below, or it's predicted 50% chance of rain, churches sign up on a rotating schedule, and they open up and they provide shelter to those that need it the most.
I saw that Cottage Health, in partnership with PATH of Santa Barbara, has launched this Cottage Recuperative Care Program. And the goal is to help qualified homeless individuals recover from illness or injury in a safe and supportive environment after they're discharged from the hospital. And then under the Recuperative Care Program, which I know you know a lot more about this than I do, Maria, the PATH will provide up to 10 beds for qualified patients who get discharged from Cottage hospitals in Santa Barbara, Goleta Valley, and Santa Ynez Valley. And the length of stay they allow is from a few weeks to 90 days. But they will have accommodations, I guess, for 24 hours per day for patients, including the people who are discharged from behavioral health services.
That's true. And what they've done is they have essentially have an agreement that they will have beds open for those individuals, depending on what they're recovering from, for up to those 90 days, with care that actually comes into PATH, so the patient doesn't have to go out, because sometimes that's just not feasible. So the care comes in. They have parish nursing on site. Sometimes somebody from public health will come on site and be there for them, for those individuals.
Nice.
And then the goal is to get people well enough and stable enough to get them into permanent housing and get them off the street, or reconnect them with their forever family. And that would be the eventual goal.
What's the forever family? How is that?
Well, forever family is a term that we use. It's reuniting people with their families forever. And actually, there is a model in San Francisco that's strictly what they do. They do research to reconnect homeless folks that that thought that they had nobody left to a family that maybe in another state that they had gotten separated from, that they had moved on. Most recently, there's a beautiful story. as tragic as it was, the Lompoc riverbed was a haven. There was miles and miles of homeless camps built along the Lompoc River. And it really was kind of a bad land. Even the law enforcement were afraid to go in there because it was a pretty tough space. And the community decided to clean up the riverbed. And it was a huge process, costing millions of dollars. Recently, I met a woman who had been living in the riverbed, living in that camp, and she said a social worker reached out her hand and said, "Do you want help?" Got her off drugs, got her off meth. She'd been living on the streets for 3 years. She is now reconnected with her family. Her kids thought she was dead. Reconnected with the father, and she's now seeing them on a regular basis, and she's in a recovery program and living in a sober living house, and she's well on her way to having a happier life.
Awesome. I mean, wow, what a big impact. I think one of the reasons I really wanted Maria to come on air is because I know in Santa Barbara, we do have a lot of great accoutrements here. We have beautiful weather. We have pretty clean air. There's a lot of people who have financial resources, but I think that also we have to not turn our head the other way. When we see people who are homeless, or if it's something we don't understand, if we see someone sleeping on the street or someone who's talking to themselves, I notice a lot of people, feel very afraid of that. And I think that then the person, ends up feeling also very stigmatized.
I mean, that's a complicated issue. There's many, many different agencies that treat all the different myriads of homelessness, and there are different types of homelessness. There are those that sleep on the streets. There are those that sleep in their cars. There are those that sleep in transitional shelter, such as Transition House or PATH or the Rescue Mission. Then there are those that are couch surfing. That would be considered homeless. There are those that are in temporary detox facilities. Where are they going to go? Then there are those that are maybe in the medical bed that were recently released from Cottage Hospital to PATH. And then there's foster kids. They may be housed, but they don't have a forever family. They don't have a home to go to. And unfortunately, if you're a foster child, if you're not adopted or taken in by the time you're age 8, you're pretty much out of luck. You're not going to be adopted, and
then you become a beneficiary. That was one of my jobs I did at the county in 04 and 05. Is I did all the out of county foster placement. So I used to authorize services, and what happens for those of you that are interested is when you become a child in the foster system, like Maria's saying, you actually become a beneficiary, and you get a number that gets attached to your name, and then that's kind of the city that is supposed to be your city. But a lot of people get moved around for because of resources.
Because of lack of foster housing, especially here. I mean and then that's the other issue with Santa Barbara. As attractive as it is, it attracts a lot of people, but the housing inventory is really, really low, and the cost of living is super high, and we don't have a lot of jobs that would support these higher rents and higher property values. And so you've got that problem, and then the problem is exacerbated because of our good weather. Why, if you were homeless, why wouldn't you want to come and enjoy this beautiful weather?
Well, I know, and some people say that people put people on buses and ship them here. Is that true, or is that not true?
I don't know. I think that might be an urban legend. I have heard it. I know that there are some folks that are homeless that choose a nomadic lifestyle. That's what I call them, is nomads, and they travel up and down the coast on the train. And that's what they choose, and who are we to say?
I just think that's good for me to know, because to educate other people. We're going to take a quick break, and we're here talking, if you just are jumping in, we're here talking with Maria Long, and she's sharing all of her wisdom about working out in the field and with Doctors Without Walls, with the homeless, and also her very important work now with neighborhood clinics. And we'll be back in just one moment. I'm going to play a public service announcement about the Beatles. Actually, I'm going to play the Gil Frizzell Wish Upon a Star Libero.
Bill Frisell is internationally known as one of the most creative and skillful guitarists working in jazz today. Jazz at the Libero is pleased to welcome Bill Frisell back to the theater for his newest creative project, When You Wish Upon a Star, on Thursday, January 24th at 8 p.m. Frisell has collaborated with the likes of Elvis Costello, Bono, Paul Simon, and the Los Angeles Philharmonic over the course of his 35-year career. His Grammy-nominated album, When You Wish Upon a Star, features his arrangements and interpretations of music for film and television. The album is more than an homage to a set of iconic scores. Frisell draws upon the passion of the music heard on screen and how it shapes and informs our emotional relationships to what we see. The guitarist will be joined by bassist Thomas Morgan, drummer Rudy Royston, and singer Petra Hayden in reimagining time-honored gems like When You Wish Upon a Star and Somewhere Over the Rainbow, as well as music from TV favorites, including The Roy Rogers Show and Bonanza. Tickets for Bill Frisell, When You Wish Upon a Star are on sale now at the Libero box office at 33 East Canton Perdido, by phone at 805-963-0761 or online at lobero.org, where you can print them out at home. KCSB is a media sponsor of this event.
This is the Dr. Deborah Show, and we're here live at Santa Barbara, at KCSB FM, Santa Barbara 91.9. And this is the Dr. Deborah Show. We talk about bringing peace and calm into your life. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm also a UCSB alumni. So I'm back here at UCSB. And we're here just talking about our community and how to create compassionate conversations about our well-being and health. And we are here talking about mental health and homelessness and also neighborhood clinics. And I'm just so excited to have Maria Long here. Maria is currently the Director of Development and Community Awareness of Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics. And she's also worked for many years with Doctors Without Walls as its inaugural executive director. She's led many local nonprofits in Santa Barbara County for decades. And her humanitarian work with the Freedom Warming Centers, CADA, and CASA is just really powerful and amazing. And, you know, Maria is just out there. She's touching so many different people's lives. She's very modest, but I know she's really making a big impact.
That's why I was surprised. Like, you want me to be on your show? You got the right person?
And Maria's appeared even on ABC and NBC television and radio. She's been featured in the LA Times on Expert on the Dangers of the Club Drug GHB. She's visited San Quentin Prison. She's also made several movies and PSAs, including one that received national recognition for a video called Ask Your Doctor. And that was about binge drinking. So I want to welcome Maria to the show again.
Thank you.
And
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I forgot that I had done all those things, actually, until you brought them up.
Oh, good.
It seems like a lifetime ago. There's a lot that's happened since then.
I know. You packed a lot in.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I have when I'm passionate about something, I have a ton of energy, and I'll do just about anything to make it happen.
I feel the same way. You get energized.
Yeah, you get energized by your work, and then at the same time, there's that whole the whole trend now is about balance, and what is that, but I think that when you love your work and you love what you do, you get energized and you can move mountains. And sometimes I naively have thought that I could do anything, and that's backfired on me a couple of times because I take on too much, and that's true about me. I'll admit it.
I know. Well, that's what I'm thinking while I'm reading all this. I mean, when we were in grad school, I know you were doing other things, but I just, it's impressive. And I think that just drives home the point, like you were saying earlier, like if you find something you're really passionate about that's very strong and, you know, you feel like it can keep you motivated, it can be very exciting, actually, to give back to other people. And it can be very healing, too, just to do the work we do.
And that's why I really like this. I took a new position. Dr. Charles Fenzi, the medical director and CEO of the neighborhood clinics, called me as I was starting to doubt what I was doing with Doctors Without Walls and realizing that they needed something else. They needed a clinical person to train their student volunteers, their pre-med students. Highly recommend the program. Dr. Jason Pristowski is the medical director, and he also teaches a free underserved medicine class here at UCSB on Tuesday nights. It's like a mini TED Talk. He gets these great speakers from all around the world, so I would recommend
Where
that.
is that held if students were listening and they wanted to go to that?
It used to be, I wanted to say Han Hall, but that's the wrong nonprofit.
Well, if you're listening and you're interested, you could always write me on the Dr. Deborah Show on Facebook, and I can connect you up with Maria, and we can get you plugged into that.
But he really does an excellent job, and it's a great learning opportunity for those that are interested in medicine. Also, if you want to get into direct service twice a year, they open up their volunteer opportunities where you can choose one of many programs that they offer. And their email is sbdww.org. Clearly, I love the mission. I love the organization.
It's a great group. I mean, I actually, I'm going to have Dr. David Behrman on next month, and he's actually, I think, the founder of the Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics, isn't he? He started those in Isla Vista.
Yeah, he is. But I was talking about Doctors Without Walls, but
sorry.
So that's okay, not a problem. But,
jumping back
let me tell you about the neighborhood clinics, and they're doing some really innovative care, and that's where Dr. Fenzi comes in, and that's actually, I met Dr. Fenzi through Dr. Pristowski.
That's how we were connected. Okay.
So that's all making it clear as mud there. So the neighborhood clinics have embarked on a really aggressive and smart campaign when you're talking about behavioral health and wellness. What they have done is they've integrated their mental health practitioners into their medical clinics.
I think that's the wave of the future. What
we do is what we call that a warm handoff. So if you come in to me and you're feeling a little low, or you come in with a sore throat, and they'll do a quick depression scale, and they'll say, let me see if my colleague Heidi is here. And if Heidi's available, then Dr. Fenzi will walk you right over to Heidi. And she'll do an assessment for what may seem appearing as a mental health disorder. And maybe she'll dig it a little deeper, and she'll find that there's substance use disorder. And then from there, we realize that we have a bigger picture, and we can then treat the whole person, and it's called whole person care, and that's what the neighborhood clinics does.
Is that just for neighborhood clinics, or did you adopt that from some other kind of organization?
No, it's the wave of the future. We call it whole person care. We are federally qualified FQHC. We will treat anybody regardless of ability to pay.
Is that also like if people are coming from other cities, like say someone comes from Carpinteria, will you treat them?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. We do charge anybody based on a sliding scale at a minimum of $45. However, we do raise money, and that's where I come in. We do raise money for scholarships. We do raise money for scholarships.
Well, I mean, so what you're saying is people can come in and they pay a low fee of $45, but then they can also get help no matter what if they need help, and then there's like a sliding scale.
There is a sliding scale. I mean, ideally, nobody will be turned away. Let's just put it that way. But there is a sliding scale. So we're funded strictly by all the different insurances, and that's a whole nother show. Again, besides the one about men and love, and that we're going to do later. I know, we could have a whole
series here.
But really what we're doing is we're trying to empower patients. We're trying to transform health care. We are trying to strengthen the safety net and build a healthier community for Santa Barbara. And help our hospitals keep people out of the emergency rooms, and trying to treat people universally. Mm-hmm. Because your head is connected to your neck bone, which is connected to the rest of you. So
right. Everybody keeps saying now that mental health is, I think people think, oh, if you have a mental illness, it's not like a broken arm. But just because you can't see it like you can see a broken arm, you still have something, that's an illness. We were talking earlier too, just about how important the mental health pieces in this picture of overall care. And it sounds like by doing that at your clinic, you're really saying that you want to discuss mental health and you also want to reduce mental health stigma. I mean, Maria, why do you think reducing mental health stigma is so essential?
Because I think as a culture, we've been shamed.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go back east, it's part of your conversation would be, and which therapist do you see? Because it's a thing. It's just part of your. It's an acceptable part of the culture to be seeing somebody for your mental wellness. So why, when you get your heart checked, why wouldn't you get your mind checked?
Right, because of the stigma.
Because of the stigma, and I think it's time that we change that. There's nothing wrong. Things happen. Fires happen. Floods happen. People, families get divorced. There's a death of a loved one. There's situational depression. There are traumatic things that go on in people's lives where they'll experience post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and it can be complex PTSD due to grief, or it can be PTSD short-term. Ideally, I don't know if it ever goes away, and I just
trauma.
think that
trauma is kind of
trauma is trauma, and it's and it certainly is kind of the buzz. I hate to have it be a buzzword these days, but I'm glad that it's being talked about more and more because this community has experienced so much trauma recently that now it's being talked about, and I think that there are a lot of different agencies that are recognizing that good mental health practitioners are essential to the health of their nonprofit and are essential to the well-being of a community.
I agree completely. In fact, if you're interested in listening more about trauma, actually last week I did speak just on my own. I did all my research on trauma at UCLA Medical School and the Rice Davis Child Studies Center. So I did go break that down, and people seem to enjoy that because they want to understand kind of the full process of trauma. And I know, like Maria's saying, that's a very hot topic word, but I like the idea that it's stimulating this acceptance, because I think, we really need to take care of our well-being and be able to discuss, our emotions and thoughts and feelings within ourselves. And so if we don't have a person to do that with, our place.
That's right. And I think what works for one person doesn't work for the other thing. There isn't, it's just, and I've always believed this even about substance abuse and substance use disorder. There is no one right way to get well or to get people into treatment. It's just get there.
Right. That's why I wanted to have Dr. Behrman come in and talk about addiction. I think addiction comes up quite a bit, and I really think we're all addicted to different things. I mean, you can be addicted to exercise, and really finding some kind of middle ground. But if we don't check in with ourselves, I don't think we can find the middle ground because we get carried away. But obviously, some addictions are much stronger than exercise. Where people have crippling.
It's when they're really harmful. Sometimes you don't even realize that they're harmful.
Well, it can be harmful if you exercise too much. If you have an eating disorder, and then you're running and you're not eating,
and I've seen that.
You get a heart attack. Yeah,
right. And I've seen that in people that I've grown up with and who've lost their lives that way.
Yeah.
We've seen. There's lots of different isms.
There is,
and another show, but I think it's recognizing that there is help available. I would encourage you if you feel like that there's a problem within your family, either for mental health. There is the Mental Wellness Center. They're great. Anne Marie Cameron and her team do a magnificent
job. She's going to come on. Yep,
she's great. Now the neighborhood clinics have LCSWs, licensed clinical social workers, embedded within each clinic.
Nice.
So when you go in, let's say for your checkup or your blood work, which I am doing this Thursday, if it turns out that I'm experiencing some type of my blood pressure spiked and I'm really, really stressed out because of the fundraiser that's going on in 2 months, that you know,
Love your honesty.
maybe there's a way that we can calm that down. May it be exercise. May it be force yourself to go out on a 10-minute break or walk around the block. Drink that extra glass of water.
Take a deep breath. I think we really hold our breath when we get under anxiety. And it's actually a really simple thing, and it's free. And that's why I've gotten really into mindfulness meditation, because I find it's free, it's easy if you get, grooved at it.
Yeah, and you also trained with one of the best, too. That's the last time I saw you with I think you were being...
With Dr. Weininger?
Yeah, with Dr. Weininger.
Yeah, I know. She came on, actually. You could listen to her. She did a great job, too. I feel very thankful. And I feel so thankful that I know people like you, and that I've been in this community for 30 years. I've, been a nurse, I've been a teacher, I've done graphic design, I've done a lot of things myself. But when I took the pledge, to do this, it really is nice to feel, that we can all work together.
Yeah, I think it's important that we do that. I think that a lot of us too, and myself included, and I admitted this, we had a board retreat, a couple weeks ago. I have a hard time asking for help because I've been on my own for so long, and as a child, a survivor of the foster care system, I was just relying on myself. There was nobody else there for me. It is really hard to ask
I'm
for
here
help.
If you want to ask me for help. I'll have to check in with you.
Okay, you will need to.
See, and that's what friends are for.
But ask for help, because that's the biggest thing. Or there's a million different ways you can help somebody. You can make a homeless person's day just by acknowledging that they're there.
Totally. I think even just smiling. I know that's what I was saying earlier. I think when I go in schools and talk to kids, a lot of times they go, I don't know, that person was talking to themselves. But, usually if you just, smile that, or, I wave or something, they're people too. So I think, and also we all need that. I think we all need to be smiled at.
Well, I think in our efforts to smile, you're being kinder, and you're being kinder to others, and then at the same time you're being kinder to yourself. I think that's one of the reasons I got into this work, is because I was a little directionless, and I thought, I need to do something that I feel good about in the world, but selfishly, it made me feel equally as good to be giving back. And I think that's why a lot of us do the work that we do. I think that's why the Bucket Brigade, for example, has been so successful, as they've been digging people out of their homes and replanting. Anybody can pick up a shovel and be part of something larger than themselves, and
he's actually going to come on too.
Oh, Abe Powell, he's great.
Yeah, I want him to come on because I want him to talk about how he's worked through all this himself. I was curious, what is your work like in the neighborhood clinics and Doctors Without Walls feel like taught you about the attitudes held toward mental health, like at organizations? And also, if there is an organization listening or something that wants to adopt some of those ideas.
What have I learned?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm a believer, and a longtime believer, and maybe that's because of my upbringing. My father was a child psychiatrist, and my mother was a social worker, but also a journalist. So it's ironic that I do what I do. But I'm a firm believer in always going to talk to somebody and talk it out.
Do you think that I know you're very focused on that. And I know you impact the organizations. Do you think that they inherently have that same approach?
Yeah, I believe so.
You do? Okay.
I don't know so much about Doctors Without Walls, but I think they're more medically driven. I know they have a psychiatrist on board, Dr. Kayla Rosen, who is just a brilliant woman. And so they're looking at mental health, because if you're homeless and you're on the streets for any, even if it's a short term, which could be 4 weeks, if you don't, you will come out of that with either their PTSD or some kind of trauma or some type of violence that could come again towards you your stuff stolen. As a woman, you're particularly vulnerable. But I think that reaching out for help, even if it's a stranger in a hotline, I think in some ways the internet is really addictive, but in some ways it's really a savior, because it doesn't make people feel so alone. I learn a lot from it, but at the same time, I admit that's another ism. You know, I don't play video games or anything, but I'm addicted to the news or my Netflix. It's a great escape for me. But that's not as harmful as some of the other isms.
Right.
And so pick your ism. And
Pick your ism.
Pick your ism and make
also
it a good
don't
one.
judge other people, you know, because I
Yeah.
think everybody's got their own approach. So it sounds like what you're saying is like the places that you've interfaced with, they really accept the idea of approaching mental health. Do you think they talk about mental health stigma? I mean, the idea of how to overcome, you know, talking about mental health.
As working in the neighborhood clinic, so say we're a medical clinic, so we just accept that mental health is a part of the whole person. I think as a nation, and federally qualified health centers are accepting the idea of whole person care, and there's all different models of how to approach mental health within clinic systems.
So you're saying by talking about how to approach it reduces the stigma.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying. I
Yes.
just was curious because I know you've interfaced with a lot of people. How do you feel that a person receiving the support, you know, from neighborhood clinics or, you know, Doctors Without Walls could help a person through a mental health crisis? And you've done a beautiful job explaining the resources. How do you think that could really change somebody's life?
Well, first of all, I think it could save somebody's life, especially if they're suicidal, immediately, and sometimes that's necessary. But also, I don't think that mental wellness or good mental health is a quick fix. I think that you need to be patient, because to get through something and get to the other side takes a lot of time. It's just like if you want to have that those perfect abs, okay, like those ones we see on TV that we all want, you know, it takes time, a lot of effort to get there. And just like your brain is a muscle,
I say the exact same thing. Yeah.
just like your brain is a muscle, you got to keep working at it to work through some of these things. And you also have to check in with yourself or somebody else and recognize that sometimes things are going to start slipping back, and they don't always go away, such as trauma. Trauma is a tricky one because you never know when you're going to get re-triggered. For me, it's the smell of wool and the feel of wool. By rubbing my face, when I was a little girl, I used to rub my face against my dad's jacket, and it, because it still had his smell. And he had this jacket with the leather elbows. He was a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And that was my last memory of him, and I kept that jacket for most of my life.
It's very tactile. I think our senses,
for me, it's smell. A lot of it's smell. It's a song. You know, just like those 80s songs that made you so happy that that just bring you back.
That's why I had a musician on. Yeah, a song moves us into a different mood.
So I think music is great medicine. I know that you're going to have Glenn Phillips on soon, and I think that song and music is great medicine for people. I think that it can take you and transform you to new places and take you to that happy place.
It can escape. Yeah, it's like a good, healthy escape. I think when you were talking about trauma and we were talking about wool and, body sensations and things like that, I mean, I've gotten very into the work with Alan Wallace and the Cultivating Emotional Balance, which is where you really check in with your body sensations and you learn from the trauma, but you have to do this. It's like a process you do, but it's very powerful because you can actually learn what body sensations you have. You might have a tight heart or numb heart or heavy heart or open heart, and your stomach might get nauseous or you might get chest tightness.
That reminds me of the work of Gene Genlin, who out of New York, who he and somebody who is trained in his work, does exceptional work, would take you through a feeling visually. Like visually, what would that feeling feel like? For me, let's say if it's my my heart feels like it's bursting against the sternum if it's about to break and shatter in a million pieces.
Very descriptive.
What does that feel like? What does that look like? What does the heat look like? Are there lightning bolts coming out of that heart that is breaking from inside my sternum? Is it, and I'm talking about a breakup, clearly. We're back to the men show. But, but there's also, what does the sadness look like? What does the sadness feel like? How does that feel in your body? How does it manifest itself? Anxiety. Is the anxiety like a lightning bolt shooting through your arms and the energy coming out of it? Is that where the anxiety lays? And what can you do?
You can make it juicier. I think, we get into the habit of saying, I'm depressed. And what I try to encourage the people I see to do, or people I care about, is to make that more descriptive, because, I got trained by James Hillman, which I feel very thankful for. And he used to always say that, make it juicy. You don't need to say, I'm a 45-year-old Caucasian woman, but you could say, like Maria's saying, like, I feel like there's electricity coming out of my hands, or I feel like my heart's bursting.
When anxiety hits me sometimes, when it hits me really hard, it's like lightning is shooting out of my arms.
That's a great description. I know other people who have that too, where the arms can be a very strong sensation.
Yeah, and I can picture that lightning bolt. It's like
I like Shazam.
It is like Shazam. It's like the superhero. That you see. It's like those cartoon lightning bolts, and that's exactly what it feels like to me. But for other people, that may look like something else. And to recognize that feeling and knowing that, hey, I'm having lightning bolts, and you can say that to somebody you're really close to. Oh, I'm doing that thing again. That's where human connection is just so important. And again, checking in with somebody else. And if you don't have somebody else, find a hotline. Call 211 to direct you. And they can direct you to a myriad of places that can help you deal with whatever you are.
In Santa Barbara, we're actually really working hard here in our community to just, I think everybody's trying to gather together to collaborate. And, we have just a couple minutes, but I really feel so strongly that we can work together, to help create a supportive environment that we can empower and care for ourselves and our friends and people around us. And like Maria was saying, some ways we can work together are volunteering, checking in with ourselves, learning about other cultures, and make sure you get accurate information from accurate, reliable sources, not random scientific studies. And I think this leads to an understanding, including, and caring. And if you can imagine a world where we can share our feelings and thoughts more freely, wouldn't that be wonderful? And where we can move toward health for all human beings. And so if we can each do our part to end negative perceptions about mental health and raise awareness, we can live in a more loving, safe, and accepting world. And so I want to thank my special guest, Maria, for coming in today and sharing her wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
And if you have questions, please write to me on my Facebook page, The Dr. Deborah Show. And I just want to give a quick shout out to HopeNet of Carpinteria. They're a suicide and prevention awareness group. And if you or someone you know needs help, call the Santa Barbara Access Line. Their number is 1-888-868-1649. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're live at KCSB FM Santa Barbara 91.9. Next week, join us. We'll be having musician Glenn Phillips come on.